Moto Guzzi. The name alone conjures images of dusty Italian back roads, mustachioed men in wool suits, and motorcycles with engines so oddly positioned, you'd think someone lost the blueprint, and they said, build it anyways. They've been making bikes for over a century, 100 years. That's longer than television, Velcro, and crucially, the modern understanding of motorcycle suspension. Remember, this is a company that built a wind tunnel in 1950 in their own factory, and then completely ignored aerodynamics for the next 70 years. But now, after years of lingering behind like your uncle still wearing bootcut jeans, something has happened. This is the new Moto Guzzi V100 Mandello S. And it's not just a new bike, it's a declaration, a challenge, a bold, shaft-driven middle finger to everyone who ever said, Moto Guzzi? You thought you knew Moto Guzzi, but do you really? This is the new 1042cc V-twin, and it's the first all-new engine from Moto Guzzi in over 30 years. That's 3 decades. This engine is liquid-cooled, dual overhead cam, 4 valves per cylinder, ride-by-wire. It makes 115 horsepower and 77 foot-pounds of torque. But more than numbers, it's the feel. It has character, it's grunty but smooth, raw but refined. The torque is right there from the bottom and the delivery is linear all the way to the top. They rotated the cylinder heads 90 degrees, so now the intake faces forward and the exhaust out the side. This improves airflow, heat management, and center of gravity. Yes, the V100 is still shaft driven, but not in the clunky 1980s final drive clatter terrible sort of way. This thing is butter smooth. There's no torque reaction, no drama, just effortless, smooth drive. And you'll never have to see a can of chain wax as long as you ride this bike. The steel trellis frame is tight and balanced, and it comes together to make a bike that handles with surprising agility. Not sport bike razor sharp handling, but confident, settled, grown-up, fast riding handling.
All right, first impressions. That was the first time I got a chance to take this bike out, and wow, this is the Moto Guzzi V100 Mandello S. And S adds the Öhlins active suspension, which is electronically controlled by the bike and is amazing. In fact, I'm very upset that none of my current motorcycles have this suspension package because it is that good. Now, bike has 115 horsepower, a whole bunch of torque because it is a transversely mounted 90-degree V-twin. So you're gonna get that character, you're gonna get that grunt out of the motor, but then that's paired to a shaft drive with a sport touring transmission. So you're gonna have the smooth output and the smooth power to the road. It's a very unique experience. So when I said this bike has character, I'm not trying to talk like, oh, hey, you gotta date this girl, she's got great character. Obviously, it's a great looking bike, but add to that great looks a whole bunch of Italian character, and I gotta say, I really enjoyed it. When you twist that throttle in sport mode, you get a definite response from that engine. Okay. As soon as we can get clear of the traffic, I'll give her a little punch. So we're gonna stay down here until I have a clear shot just to get around these guys so we can feel this thing. Okay. All right, we're gonna give it a punch, and here we go. Now, speaking of modes, the bike has 4 modes. It has normal mode, it has a rain mode, it has a touring mode, and it has a sport mode. And each one is distinctly different. The lesser modes like rain and touring add more traction control, and as you go towards sport, it takes it away and gives you more control and a little more feistiness. When you hit sport mode, the throttle becomes very, very crisp and very responsive. So they've really set this bike up well. Now, speaking of setup, out of the box, this is probably one of the most comfortable bikes I've jumped on. It took me 3 or 4 iterations of my Africa Twin and 3 iterations on my BMW to get as much comfort as I have just by jumping on this bike. The raised bars, the location of the foot pegs, everything makes it for a very comfortable and yet maneuverable bike. I thought maybe it was going to be a heavier bike, but it's very easy to flick around. If it does have any weight to it, you don't feel it when you're riding, so that's another great plus. It's very easy to navigate the controls. They're very easy to reach with your thumbs. I think the cockpit was well thought out by Moto Guzzi. And then this whole motor, this engine is amazing. And we're gonna go over that back at the studio because I know Moto Guzzi did quite a bit and they made a lot of changes for this motor compared to their old motors. So if you've ridden Moto Guzzis in the past and thought, hey, this is a cool bike, but I want a little more, I think they listened to you, and we'll go over that in a little bit. So if you follow along the channel, you know we went to the AIM Expo and I saw the white version of this. It was the non-S when we were out there, and I was kind of blown away. I thought it was like a resto mod or something, but no, it was this bike. This colorway is awesome. All right, the rideability, the characteristics of the bike. As soon as you jump on, you can feel it has character, but it doesn't feel heavy. The bike feels very much like a very comfortable sport bike. It is so light in the turns. Within 5 minutes, I felt completely comfortable on it, and where I looked is where the bike went. I'm sure with a little time, and if I actually owned this bike, it would be no problem to go throw it down through the twisties, have a blast, mount the bags up, and then head to work the next day. I think this is a very versatile bike from riding it. Again, the cockpit's laid out well, the mirrors work great, you can see everything behind you. The TFT is very easy to read, and even with the sun behind me or in front of me, you can make out everything there. And the adjustable windshield. Now my BMW has an adjustable windshield, but I have to reach out, flick it up and down, and do everything. On this bike, it's you move your thumb, hit a couple buttons, and that windshield rises right up or down. And in rain mode, when these guys come out, the windshield can rise as well. So this bike is really well thought out. And the S version, I don't know. I haven't ridden the other one, but I think if I was gonna go for it, this S model would be the one I'm going for. That Öhlins suspension is amazing. All right, well, let's head back to the studio and let's go over the specs of this whole machine.
And as the title said, this is the S model. And the S stands for, seriously guys, don't buy the base model. If you've ever tried to put Öhlins suspension on a bike that you've already owned, you know how expensive it is. For the few thousand more for the S, you get Öhlins Smart EC 2.0 semi-active suspension that constantly adjusts itself based on your riding style, the road conditions. No clickers, no tools, no anything. Just let the bike do it, and it is amazing. You cannot believe how good this bike is. When you're on the highway, it's comfortable and soft. When you're in the twisties, the suspension gives you all the feedback you could want. Once I saw that Öhlins was on this bike, I was expecting good suspension, but I had no idea how good Öhlins has gotten in the last few years. Up front in the cockpit, the bike also hosts 4 ride modes: Sport, Road, Touring, and Rain. And each mode changes throttle response, power delivery, traction control, engine braking, and suspension. And you can physically feel the changes of each mode under you. And since we talked about modes, let's go back to rain mode. Because when you hit rain mode, you also get a party trick. In rain mode, a pair of air deflectors deploy from the fuel tank. Kind of like Iron Man's suit, but for wet weather. It's subtle, but it works. It keeps the wind and rain off your legs and midsection. Completely functional aero on a Moto Guzzi. Excuse me while I recover. As you heard in my first ride recap, the ergonomics on this bike are bang on. They spent some time developing this because they are neutral, upright, roomy, and yet you still feel connected to the bike. They're kind of like my BMW, but unlike my Africa Twin and my BMW, I didn't need to add bar risers, gel seat pads, or lowering pegs. This bike came dialed straight from Phil's shop with just a general setup. Pretty amazing. And with those good EGROS comes the ability to ride long miles. And this bike will comply. At 80 miles an hour, it's completely calm. Cruise control on, windscreen up, legs tucked. It's a proper long distance machine. And yet, as you saw, twist the throttle at highway speeds and the bike still has plenty of engine to play. And as we mentioned earlier, look at this paint job. The green, the silver with the orange accents. This is retro-futurism at its absolute best. It feels like it belongs in 2025 and yet somehow pays tribute to 100 years of Italian flair and legacy. And even the lettering on the wheels says, "Hey, I'm Italian. I'm fast. And yeah, I dress better than you." All right, as promised, we're back in the studio to talk about the specs because I can't remember anything out in the field. So, all right, let's go over the important stuff. Obviously, I'll put the sheet up. You read what you want to, but what most of you guys are probably concerned with is displacement is 1,042 cc's. Max horsepower is 115 horsepower at 8,700 RPMs. Max torque of 105 Newton meters at 6,750 RPMs. 6-speed gearbox and a shaft drive. And then the weight. It's a little bit heavier than I thought, but it doesn't feel that weight at all. So the dry weight is 212 kilograms, and then the curb weight, meaning with all the fluids, is 233 kilograms, which if you eat hamburgers here in the USA, that's 513 pounds. But again, the bike does not feel heavy at all, and the acceleration is impressive for a sport touring bike. Another thing that I didn't even realize was on the bike, because I probably should have read the entire manual, but this is really cool. Take a look at this sheet. 4D radar technology for greater safety and more enjoyable riding. It has forward collision warnings, following cruise control, which is awesome, which means that if you set it at 80 and a car in front of you goes 75, then back up to 80, the bike will do it automatically. It has blind spot information. It can detect vehicles in your blind spot within 30 meters and provide alerts on the display and rear view mirrors. And it has lane change assist. It detects potential collisions and vehicles coming from the side or behind. When changing lanes, it indicates them on the display and rear view mirrors. Now the funny part about that was I saw some flashing on the dash when I was passing some cars, and I had no idea what it was. I was just hoping it wasn't anything bad. So actually it was the 4D radar stuff. So how cool is that? I did want to mention one thing. No review is ever perfect, and there was one thing that I did not enjoy on this motorcycle. I'm sure I can get used to it if I was owning this bike and riding it a lot, but for a casual rider or somebody taking their first ride, the kickstand, the little nub that you have to access with your toe to put the kickstand down, is right underneath the foot peg. And it can be really kind of hard to get your foot in there to put it down. And when you're not used to it, it's really kind of hard to find. Again, this is like a very nitpicky thing. I'm sure after 5 rides, I'd know exactly where it was and it wouldn't be a big deal. But I couldn't find anything else wrong with this bike, so I had to say something, and that was it. All right, so what are my final thoughts on this bike that you can obviously see I enjoyed quite a bit? Well, to me, the 2025 Moto Guzzi V100 Mandello S is equal parts sport bike, sport tourer, and luxury techno cruiser. It has character, but not at the cost of comfort. It's stylish, and I mean Italian stylish, but not at the cost of substance. It's what happens when a legendary brand finally listens and decides to build something modern without forgetting who they are. I want to send out a super shout out to my partner in all of this, Phil from Cleveland Moto. Obviously, I couldn't do a bike review without being provided a bike. And Phil's been my friend for over 20 years, and he's partnering in this series. He's going to enable me to bring reviews like this to you guys and do an honest review. So much appreciated. Thank you, Phil. It is a true mom and pop shop. There's no boards, there's no anything. It's Phil and his staff that has been with him forever. So just saying, if you want to support a real local business and you're thinking about a Moto Guzzi, check out Cleveland Moto. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. It's a lot of work, a lot of fun though too. And so remember, if it works, it ain't dumb. We'll see you on the next one.